I paid for my entire family's dream vacation, but when I got there, I found out my sister told everyone I got the tickets for free, so I canceled the return flights and watched her explain who was really paying. The trip was supposed to fix everything. I'd worked doubles at the hospital for 18 months, lived on ramen, and saved $9,200 to take my family to Costa Rica. My parents never had a real vacation. My sister constantly posted about how boring our family was compared to her friends' families who traveled. When I sent the itinerary, my sister called crying with gratitude. Mom sent me a voice message saying I was too generous. Dad texted 3 heart emojis, which for him was practically a novel. The resort was paradise. Endless beaches, infinity pools, activities included. On our second day, I was getting drinks when I overheard my aunt talking to strangers at the bar. My niece works for this airline, she said proudly. Got us all buddy passes, practically free except taxes. I stood there, frozen, holding 2 piña coladas. Buddy passes? I found my cousin later by the pool. So lucky your work gave you those companion tickets, she said. Wish my job had perks like that. That night, I confronted my sister on her balcony. Buddy passes? I said. You told them I got airline employee discounts? She wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't want everyone feeling guilty that you spent so much. So you lied and made it seem like this cost me nothing. Does it really matter? She asked. Everyone's happy. We're all here together. It matters because I worked 70-hour weeks. It matters because this was every dollar I saved. She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. No one cares who paid what. But they did care. At dinner, my uncle kept talking about how amazing employee benefits were these days, how I should see if I could get more buddy passes for Christmas. My cousin asked if I could get her discounted flights to Europe. My sister smiled through every comment, never corrected anyone. I went back to my room and opened my laptop, found the flight reservations, canceled every return ticket except mine. The fees were brutal, but I'd already paid for the insult of having 18 months of sacrifice erased. 3 days later, my sister burst into my room at breakfast time. The airline app says our tickets don't exist. That's strange, I said, not looking up from my coffee. I called them. They said someone canceled everything, probably a computer error. Her face went pale as understanding hit. You didn't. I did. Since everyone thinks these tickets were free employee perks, I figured actual money wouldn't matter. Are you serious right now? Completely. If you want to get home, book your own flight. Last-minute tickets are running about $900 each. I don't have $900. Then I guess you'll need to explain to everyone who actually paid for this vacation. She tried bargaining, then threatening, then crying. I packed my bag while she spiraled. By lunch, the entire family knew. They gathered in the lobby, looking at their phones in panic. My sister had told them everything, trying to paint me as vindictive. But my dad asked the question that mattered. Did you really tell everyone your sister got these tickets for free? My sister stammered. I thought, you thought erasing my sacrifice was easier than admitting I did something generous, I said. The shame on my parents' faces was almost worse than my sister's lies. My uncle started calculating credit card limits. My aunt was crying. My cousin kept apologizing for the Europe comment. I grabbed my suitcase. I'm leaving on my original flight. The rest of you figure it out. My sister blocked the door. Please don't do this. I'm sorry. I'll tell everyone the truth. You already should have. I pushed past her. At the airport, my phone exploded with messages. Most were from my parents, frantically trying to book last-minute flights they couldn't afford. One was from my sister, begging. Then a call from an unknown number. Resort security. We need you to return immediately. A guest has filed a fraud report claiming you used her credit card information without authorization. Local police are involved. My sister's voice in the background, explaining something to officers. My hand tightened around my phone. I'm sorry, what? Miss, your sister has filed a report claiming you accessed her credit card without permission to book flights. The charges were significant. Costa Rican authorities take financial crimes very seriously. I felt my blood pressure spike. That's completely false. You'll need to return to the resort to provide a statement. If you board that plane, it could be considered fleeing jurisdiction. My sister's manipulation had reached a new low. She was trying to criminalize me for her lies. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said through gritted teeth. The cab ride back felt longer than the flight from home. I used the time to pull up every receipt, every bank statement, every piece of documentation proving I'd paid for everything with my own money. When I walked into the resort security office, I found my sister sitting with 2 police officers, dabbing her eyes with tissue. She looked up when I entered, and for a split second, I saw calculation flash across her face before she resumed her tearful victim act. Officers, I said calmly, I'm happy to cooperate fully. But first, I'd like to understand exactly what I'm being accused of. The taller officer consulted his notepad. Your sister claims you used her credit card information to purchase airline tickets totaling $9,200 without her knowledge or consent. That's interesting, I said, opening my laptop, because I paid for those tickets with my own card, from my own account, 6 months ago. I turned the screen to show them my bank statements, highlighting the transaction, the date, the amount, my name on the account. The officer's expression shifted. These appear to be your personal funds, he said slowly. They are. Every cent came from my savings. I worked overtime for 18 months to afford this trip. Then why would your sister file this report? The second officer asked. My sister jumped in. She canceled all our return flights. She stranded us here. The tickets I paid for, I clarified, with my money, which makes them my property to cancel if I choose. You can't just leave people in another country, my sister shrieked. You're adults with credit cards and functioning brains, I replied. You can book your own flights home. The first officer held up his hand. Let me understand this. You purchased tickets for your family as a gift. Your sister misrepresented how the tickets were obtained. When you discovered her deception, you canceled the return portions of tickets that you paid for. Exactly. He turned to my sister. Do you have any evidence that she used your credit card? My sister's mouth opened and closed. Well, no, but did you give her permission to use your card at any point? No, because I didn't. I mean, she must have. So you filed a false police report, the officer said flatly. The color drained from my sister's face. I didn't mean to file a false report. She backtracked frantically. I just thought maybe she'd used my information somehow. I was confused. The stress of being stranded? Filing a false report is a criminal offense, the second officer stated, particularly when it involves allegations of fraud and theft. Wait, no, my sister said, standing abruptly. I made a mistake. Can't I just withdraw the report? You wasted police resources, the first officer said. Pulled us away from legitimate cases. That has consequences. I watched my sister's panic escalate. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt exhausted. Officers, I said quietly, would it be possible to speak with my sister privately for a moment? They exchanged glances, then nodded. We'll be right outside. Once the door closed, my sister whirled on me. You have to tell them this was all a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. You filed a false report to try to manipulate me into restoring your flights. I panicked, okay? Everyone's furious at me. Mom won't even look at me. Dad keeps asking how I could be so ungrateful. I just needed them to stop. By making me the criminal? She slumped into her chair. I messed up. I know I messed up. You've been messing up since the moment you told everyone those tickets were free. I thought I was helping, she said weakly. No, you thought you were avoiding feeling inferior. You couldn't stand that your younger sister did something generous that you couldn't do yourself. The truth hung between us. Please, she whispered. Don't let them charge me. I'll tell everyone what really happened. I'll apologize. I'll pay you back somehow. I studied her face, saw genuine fear there, mixed with shame. You should have thought about consequences before you lied, I said. Before you let Uncle talk about buddy passes. Before you filed a false police report. I know. I walked to the door, then paused. I'll tell the officers I don't wish to press additional charges. But you're fixing this mess yourself. Book your own flight home. Apologize to everyone. And never ever claim credit for something I did again. I promise, she said, voice breaking. I stepped outside and approached the officers. I don't want to pursue charges related to the false report. My sister made a mistake out of desperation. I think the situation has been stressful enough for everyone involved. The first officer nodded slowly. That's generous of you, but we'll still need to document that a false report was filed. She'll receive a formal warning. I understand. You're free to catch your flight, the second officer said. We have everything we need from you. I thanked them and headed back to the taxi area. My phone buzzed continuously during the ride to the airport. Mom begging me to help them book flights. Dad saying we needed to talk as a family. My aunt leaving a tearful voicemail about how sorry she was. I responded to only one message. Mom's. I'm catching my flight. You all need to handle your own arrangements. When I get home, we can discuss what happens next. At the airport, I settled into my seat, declining the flight attendant's offer of champagne. I was too exhausted to celebrate. The passenger next to me, a woman in her 60s, noticed my expression. Rough vacation? You could say that? Family drama? I laughed without humor. Is there any other kind? I've been flying to Costa Rica for 30 years, she said. Every trip, I leave my family at home. Best decision I ever made. We flew in comfortable silence after that. I dozed fitfully, waking as we descended into familiar territory. My apartment had never looked better. I dropped my bags and collapsed on the couch, finally allowing myself to process everything. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. We made it home. Your mother and I paid for your sister's ticket. Your aunt and uncle used credit cards for theirs. Your cousin is still trying to figure something out. Then, another message. We need to talk about what happened. I stared at those words. We need to talk, as if this were some minor misunderstanding that could be smoothed over with a conversation. I typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on, I'm not ready yet. For 3 days, I ignored calls and texts from everyone except my best friend Riley, who brought wine and listened to the whole story without interrupting once. So, your sister basically committed credit fraud against the police, Riley said finally. That's impressively stupid. She was desperate. She was manipulative. There's a difference. Riley had a point. Desperation didn't excuse lying to police officers. What are you going to do? Riley asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to never speak to any of them again. Part of me knows that's not realistic. You could at least make them sweat a little longer. On day 4, I finally answered when Mom called. Thank God, she breathed. I've been so worried. I'm fine. We need to talk about Costa Rica. We really don't. Your sister feels terrible about what she did. She should. Mom sighed. I know you're angry. You have every right to be, but she's your sister. She made a mistake. She made multiple calculated decisions, I corrected. She lied about where the tickets came from. She let that lie spread and grow. She watched me be humiliated. Then she tried to have me arrested. She wasn't thinking clearly. Stop making excuses for her. Silence on the other end. I worked 18 months for that vacation, I said quietly. 70-hour weeks. I ate ramen so I could save every extra dollar. I wanted to do something nice for all of you, and we're so grateful. Are you? Because being grateful would mean acknowledging what I did. It would mean correcting lies when you heard them. It would mean supporting me when everything fell apart. We didn't know what to do, Mom admitted. You could have asked me. You could have believed me. Instead, you watched your daughter file a false police report against me. We thought she was just panicking. I'm hanging up now, I said. When you're ready to actually hold her accountable instead of explaining away her behavior, we can talk again. I ended the call and immediately blocked my sister's number. I couldn't handle her apologies or excuses. Work became my sanctuary. The hospital emergency room was chaotic and demanding, which meant I didn't have time to think about family drama. My coworkers noticed my extra shifts but didn't comment. 2 weeks after returning from Costa Rica, I arrived home to find my sister sitting on my apartment steps. "How did you get this address?" I asked. "Mom gave it to me. Please, I just need 5 minutes. You don't get to show up at my home uninvited." "I know, but you won't answer my calls or texts." I needed to apologize in person. I considered going inside and shutting the door in her face. Instead, I sat down on the step next to her, maintaining careful distance. "You have 5 minutes." She took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know that's not enough, but I mean it. What I did was unforgivable." "Then why are you asking for forgiveness?" "Because you're my sister. Because I messed up the most generous thing anyone's ever done for our family. Because I let my own insecurity turn me into someone I hate." "What insecurity?" She laughed bitterly. "Are you serious? You're the responsible one, the successful one, the one who saves lives and works 70-hour weeks and still manages to drop $9,000 on a vacation. Meanwhile, I'm barely keeping my head above water financially. So you decided to tear me down. I decided to make it seem like you hadn't done anything special, like it was just some work perk that fell in your lap. Because if it was easy for you, then I didn't have to feel so inadequate." At least she was being honest. "That's some twisted logic," I said. "I know. And then when you canceled the flights, I panicked. Everyone was looking at me like I'd ruined everything. So I tried to shift blame back to you. Make it seem like you were the one being unreasonable by accusing me of credit card fraud." She winced. "I wasn't thinking. I just needed them to stop being angry at me. So you tried to get me arrested in a foreign country. I know how it sounds. It sounds like you were willing to destroy my life to avoid accountability." She started crying. Not the manipulative tears from the resort, but genuine sobs that shook her shoulders. "I hate myself for what I did. I've barely slept. Every time I close my eyes, I see your face at the resort. How betrayed you looked." I sat with her pain for a moment, not to comfort her, but to witness it. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said finally. "I understand, but I appreciate you acknowledging what you did." She wiped her eyes. "For what it's worth, I've been in therapy, trying to figure out why I do this kind of thing." "What kind of thing?" "Sabotage relationships. Tear down people I love when they succeed. My therapist says it's about self-worth. Your self-worth isn't my responsibility to manage." "I know. That's what I'm trying to work on." We sat in silence as the sun set behind the buildings. "I'm not ready to have you in my life right now," I said. "Maybe someday, but not now." She nodded, standing slowly. "I'll leave you alone." But I meant what I said about the apology, and about trying to be better. I watched her walk away, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. That night, I finally responded to Mom's texts. "I saw my sister today. I appreciate that she apologized, but I need space from all of you right now. Please respect that." Mom's response came quickly. "How much space?" "I don't know. Weeks, maybe months. I'll reach out when I'm ready." "We love you." "I know. But love wasn't enough. Not when it came without accountability. Not when it excused harmful behavior for the sake of keeping peace." The months passed slowly. I threw myself into work, picked up hobbies I'd abandoned, reconnected with friends I'd neglected while saving for Costa Rica. Riley dragged me to pottery classes and hiking trips. "You seem lighter," she observed one Saturday morning over coffee. "I feel lighter." "No family guilt weighing you down?" "Surprisingly little." "Have they been respecting your boundaries?" "Mostly. Mom texts every few weeks to check in. Dad sent a card for my birthday. My sister leaves me alone, which I appreciate." "Think you'll ever reconnect?" I considered the question. "Maybe, on my terms, when I'm ready." "That's fair." 3 months after Costa Rica, I received an unexpected letter, handwritten, from my sister. "I'm not sending this to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know that I've continued therapy. I've been diagnosed with depression and anxiety, which doesn't excuse what I did, but helps explain some of my patterns. I'm working on building my own life instead of tearing down yours. I got a promotion at work. I'm paying back Mom and Dad for the flight they bought me. Small steps, but they feel important. I hope you're doing well. You deserve every good thing. Your sister." I folded the letter carefully and put it in my desk drawer. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But acknowledgement that people could change. 4 months after Costa Rica, Dad called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hi, Dad." "Hi, sweetie. I know you said you needed space, but I have something I need to say." "Okay. I failed you in Costa Rica. I failed you before that, too. I should have questioned your sister's story about the tickets. I should have protected you when everything fell apart. I should have believed you without hesitation." My throat tightened. "I've thought about it every day since we got back," he continued. "How we let you down. How we prioritized your sister's feelings over your sacrifice. I'm ashamed of myself." "Dad, let me finish. You worked yourself to exhaustion to give us something beautiful, and we threw it back in your face. Not intentionally, but through complacency, through not questioning, through choosing comfort over truth." I felt tears building. "I don't expect you to forgive us," he said, "but I needed you to know that I see what we did wrong, and I'm sorry." "Thank you," I whispered. "Take all the time you need. We'll be here when you're ready." After we hung up, I cried for the first time since leaving Costa Rica. Not angry tears or bitter tears, but cleansing ones. 6 months after Costa Rica, I agreed to have coffee with Mom. We met at a neutral location, a cafe halfway between our homes. She looked older somehow, more tired. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "You're welcome. I've missed you." "I've missed you too." We ordered coffee and sat in awkward silence until Mom finally spoke. I've been replaying everything in my mind. All the times I should have stepped in, should have questioned the buddy pass story, Should have supported you instead of managing your sister's emotions. Why didn't you? She considered the question carefully. Your sister has always been more fragile, required more attention, more careful handling. Somewhere along the way, I started assuming you were fine because you were competent, because you handled things. I'm not always fine. I know that now. I took your strength for granted. Let your sister's neediness overshadow your needs. It felt like my feelings didn't matter, I admitted. Like keeping peace was more important than acknowledging what actually happened. Your feelings matter enormously. What happened to you in Costa Rica was cruel, and we made it worse by not standing up for you. I nodded, feeling some of the anger dissolve. I can't promise I'll never make mistakes, Mom said, but I can promise to try harder, to see you instead of just assuming you're okay, to believe you first. That's all I wanted. Can we try again? Slowly? I thought about it. About the cost of holding on to anger versus the cost of rebuilding. Slowly, I agree. Over the following months, I carefully reconstructed relationships with my parents. Dinners every few weeks, phone calls that felt genuine, boundaries that were respected. My sister and I remained distant. Not hostile, but not close. We'd exchange brief texts on holidays, acknowledge each other's existence without pretending everything was fine. 1 year after Costa Rica, I received a check in the mail, $9,200, from my sister. The note attached said simply, I can't undo what I did, but I can return what you spent. Thank you for the lesson in accountability. I stared at that check for a long time. Part of me wanted to tear it up, send it back, refuse her attempt at restitution. Instead, I deposited it and used it to book a solo trip to New Zealand, posted photos of mountains and glaciers and stunning coastlines. Lived exactly the adventure I wanted without worrying about anyone else's comfort or opinion. My sister liked every photo, never commented, just acknowledged my joy from a distance. 2 years after Costa Rica, I ran into my aunt at the grocery store. We hadn't spoken since the trip. I owe you an apology, she said immediately. You do. I should have questioned the buddy pass story. Should have thanked you properly for your generosity. Should have supported you when everything fell apart. Why didn't you? Because it was easier to believe the comfortable lie. Easier to enjoy the vacation without guilt. I'm ashamed of that now. I appreciate you saying that. Your sister told us what really happened, about how she manipulated the situation, how she tried to have you arrested. We had no idea it went that far. She finally told the truth? At Thanksgiving dinner last year, just laid it all out. Your uncle was furious with her, with himself for not seeing it sooner. How is my cousin doing? I asked, remembering her Europe comment. Embarrassed. She wanted to reach out but didn't know if you'd want to hear from her. She was just going along with what she was told. I don't blame her. My aunt's eyes teared up. You're kinder than we deserve. I'm not kind. I'm just tired of holding on to anger. 3 years after Costa Rica, my sister asked if we could meet for lunch. I agreed, curious about what she had to say after all this time. She looked different, healthier somehow, more settled in her own skin. Thank you for coming, she said. You said it was important. It is. I'm getting married. I felt surprised, and something else, maybe happiness for her. Congratulations. His name is Owen. He's a teacher, patient and kind and everything I'm not naturally. You're more than you give yourself credit for. She smiled sadly. I'm trying to be. Therapy helped. So did Owen. He doesn't let me get away with my old patterns. That's good. I'm not inviting you to the wedding. I raised my eyebrows. Not because I don't want you there, she clarified quickly, but because I don't want to pressure you. Don't want to force reconciliation before you're ready. Owen said I needed to respect your boundaries even if it hurts. Owen sounds smart. He is. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. For what it's worth, she said eventually. Costa Rica changed me, hitting rock bottom like that, seeing who I'd become. It forced me to either get better or stay miserable. I'm glad you chose better. I almost didn't, but Owen found me at my lowest point and saw potential instead of disaster. Everyone deserves that. Even you? I thought about it. About Riley and my parents' attempts at redemption. About strangers who'd been kind for no reason. Yeah, even me. 4 years after Costa Rica, I accepted an invitation to my sister's home for dinner. She'd insisted it was casual. Just her, Owen, and me. Their apartment was small but warm. Photos on the walls, plants in every corner, a cat that immediately demanded attention. Owen greeted me with genuine friendliness. No awkwardness, no apologetic explanations. Just nice to finally meet you. And your sister talks about you constantly. Over dinner, I watched them interact. The way Owen gently corrected her when she started catastrophizing. How she laughed at his terrible jokes. The ease between them. This is nice, I said. It is, my sister agreed. Thank you for giving me this chance. Thank you for earning it. After Owen went to load the dishwasher, my sister turned to me seriously. I know we'll never be the sisters we should have been, but I'd like to be the sisters we can be, if you're willing. What does that look like? Honest, boundaried, real. No pretending we're close if we're not. No forcing traditions that don't fit. Just two people who share history trying to be in each other's lives authentically. I can work with that. 5 years after Costa Rica, I planned another family vacation. Smaller this time. Just Mom, Dad, and me. We went to Maine, rented a cabin by the coast, spent our days hiking and eating lobster rolls and having conversations that actually meant something. One evening, sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Dad said, "This is what Costa Rica should have been." It's better, I corrected, because it's honest. Mom reached over and squeezed my hand. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for showing up differently. That night, I thought about the 19-year-old version of myself who'd worked 70-hour weeks to create a perfect vacation. How desperately she'd wanted to bring everyone together. How crushed she'd been when it all fell apart. I wished I could tell her that the falling apart was necessary, that sometimes things have to break completely before they can be rebuilt into something stronger. 7 years after Costa Rica, my sister had a baby, a little girl named after our grandmother. When she asked if I'd be willing to be the godmother, I said yes, not because everything was fixed, not because the past was forgotten, but because people deserve chances to be better. And my sister had taken hers. At the christening, surrounded by family who'd worked hard to heal their broken pieces, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Not the false piece of pretending nothing happened, not the fragile piece of walking on eggshells, but the hard-won piece of people who'd hurt each other, held each other accountable, and chosen to keep trying. Riley found me after the ceremony. How are you feeling? Good. Really good. No regrets about Costa Rica? I thought about it. About the 18 months of saving, the humiliation at the resort, the canceled flights, the false police report, about all the pain that had followed. No regrets, I said finally. It taught me that my worth isn't in what I can provide for other people. That boundaries are necessary, even with family. That love without accountability is meaningless. Heavy lessons, worth learning. 10 years after Costa Rica, I married Riley. We'd fallen in love slowly, built on friendship and trust and mutual respect. My sister was a bridesmaid, not maid of honor. That went to my college roommate who'd been there through everything. But bridesmaid felt right, acknowledged our relationship without overstating it. During her toast, she said something that made me cry. My sister taught me that you can't erase your mistakes, but you can learn from them. That redemption isn't a moment, it's a process. That love means holding people accountable, not letting them off easy. I'm grateful every day that she didn't give up on our family, even when we gave her every reason to. Later that night, as Riley and I danced under string lights, I thought about the girl who'd saved $9,200 for a dream vacation. She'd gotten something better than a perfect trip to Costa Rica. She'd gotten a lesson in self-worth that would shape the rest of her life. She'd learned that her value didn't come from how much she could give or how much she could forgive. It came from knowing what she deserved and refusing to settle for less. She'd learned that family wasn't about blood or obligation. It was about mutual respect and genuine accountability. She'd learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices. And she'd learned that healing isn't linear. It's messy and complicated and sometimes takes a decade, but it's possible if everyone involved is willing to do the work. As Riley spun me under the lights, I whispered, "Thank you." For what? For seeing me, for believing me without question, for never asking me to shrink myself to make others comfortable. That's just basic respect. It's rarer than you think. The wedding ended late. We drove to the airport for our honeymoon flight. As we checked in, Riley asked, "Where to?" "Somewhere we've never been. Somewhere with no expectations or history. Just us and possibility." "Costa Rica?" I laughed. "Absolutely not." We ended up in Iceland, watched the northern lights from a geothermal pool, hiked glaciers and explored volcanic landscapes, made memories that belonged only to us. On our last night, as we soaked in a hot spring under the stars, Riley said, "Tell me about the person you were before Costa Rica. Younger, more naive, desperate to prove my worth through what I could give others. And now? Now I know my worth is inherent, not earned through sacrifice or generosity, just there because I'm human and I matter." Took you a decade to learn that? Some lessons take time. We sat in comfortable silence, steam rising around us. "Do you think your sister really changed?" Riley asked. "I think she's trying, some days more successfully than others, but the trying counts for something." "And your parents?" "They showed up differently, made real effort, apologized without making excuses. That's all I can ask." "What about you? Do you think you changed?" I considered it. I became someone who values peace more than being right, who chooses boundaries over bitterness, who can hold space for both hurt and healing. That sounds exhausting. Sometimes it is, but it's better than the alternative. The stars reflected in the water around us, infinite and beautiful and indifferent to human drama. "I'm glad you canceled those flights," Riley said suddenly. "Yeah? It was the first time you chose yourself. Everything good that happened after came from that decision." Riley was right. Canceling those flights had been about more than punishing my sister's lies. It had been about declaring that my sacrifice mattered, that my feelings mattered, that I mattered. Everything else, the therapy, the boundaries, the rebuilt relationships, had flowed from that single act of self-respect. "Best $900 in cancellation fees I ever spent," I said. Riley laughed. "That's one way to look at it." We flew home the next day, back to our life together, back to jobs and responsibilities and the beautiful mundanity of everyday existence. My sister texted a photo of my goddaughter's first steps. I responded with congratulations and a promise to visit soon. Mom called to ask about the honeymoon, actually listened to my stories instead of redirecting to her own news. Dad sent a card welcoming Riley to the family, short and simple and from the heart. Small moments, small gestures, but they added up to something larger. 15 years after Costa Rica, I sat in my sister's living room watching my goddaughter open birthday presents. She was bright and funny, and nothing like either of us at her age. "Auntie," she said, holding up a toy airplane, "can we go on a trip together someday?" My sister tensed, waiting for my response. "Absolutely," I said. "When you're old enough, we'll plan something amazing, just you and me. And Mommy, if Mommy wants to come." My sister relaxed visibly. "I'd love that." Later, as I helped clean up wrapping paper, she said quietly, "Thank you for being in her life, for not punishing her for what I did. She's a kid. This isn't her burden to carry. Still, it means everything." I thought about cycles of hurt and healing, about how easy it would have been to stay bitter, to cut everyone off and never look back. Some people would have said that was the healthy choice. complete separation from toxic family. But health looks different for everyone. For me, it meant carefully rebuilt relationships with clear boundaries. It meant holding people accountable while also holding space for growth. It meant refusing to let my sister's worst moment define her forever. "How's therapy going?" I asked. "Good. I still see Dr. Palmer twice a month. Work through old patterns. Try to be better than yesterday. That's all any of us can do." 20 years after Costa Rica, I received an invitation to my sister's vow renewal. 20 years of marriage to Owen. 20 years of choosing growth over comfort. The ceremony was small, just close family and friends. My goddaughter, now a teenager, read a poem about second chances. During her speech, my sister acknowledged the journey. 20 years ago, I married a man who saw potential in my broken pieces. 10 years before that, I almost destroyed my relationship with my sister through my own insecurity. I'm grateful every day for the people who loved me enough to hold me accountable while still believing I could change. She looked directly at me. "Thank you for not giving up on our family, for showing me what real strength looks like." After the ceremony, my parents pulled me aside. They looked older now, frailer. Time had softened all of us. "We're proud of you," Dad said. "For what?" "For building a good life, for being wise about boundaries, for teaching us what accountability looks like." "I was just surviving." "You were leading," Mom corrected, "whether you meant to or not." That night, dancing with Riley at the reception, I felt the weight of 2 decades of healing. "Still no regrets?" Riley asked, knowing what I was thinking about. Still no regrets. Not even about the $9,000? Best investment I ever made in myself, because that's what Costa Rica had been. Not a vacation, not a gift, but an investment in learning my worth. And the returns, in self-respect, in healthy boundaries, in authentic relationships, had been worth every penny. The song changed. My goddaughter grabbed my hand. "Dance with me, Auntie." I let her spin me around the dance floor, laughing at her enthusiasm. This moment, this joy, existed because I'd refused to accept less than I deserved. Because I'd valued myself enough to cancel those flights. Because I'd learned that sometimes love means consequences. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is showing them who you are when you're not sacrificing yourself for their comfort. 25 years after Costa Rica, my sister and I sat on my porch drinking wine, watching the sunset. Our parents were gone now. Dad 5 years earlier, Mom just last spring. Their passings had been peaceful, their final years filled with genuine connection. "Do you ever think about Costa Rica?" my sister asked. "Sometimes. I think about it all the time, the worst version of myself on full display. We were young, stupid, figuring things out. I was cruel. You were scared." She looked at me seriously. "Does it ever stop hurting? Knowing I hurt you that badly?" "Eventually, you stop living in the past. You acknowledge it, learn from it, but you don't let it define you." "I wish I'd been different." "You became different. That matters more." We sat in silence, comfortable with the space between words. "Riley asked me something once," I said. "Asked if I thought you really changed." "What did you say?" "That you're trying. Some days more successfully than others." Still true 25 years later? Still true. But also, who cares? You're trying. That's enough. My sister's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for not writing me off, for giving me chances to be better. Thank you for taking them." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Costa Rica was beautiful, though," my sister said quietly. "The parts before everything fell apart." "It was. Think you'd ever go back?" "Maybe, with Riley, on our terms. If you do, send me a picture." "I will." 30 years after Costa Rica, I stood in my kitchen making coffee when the memories hit unexpectedly. The resort, the piña coladas, the look on my sister's face when she realized I'd canceled the flights. But this time, instead of anger or hurt, I felt something else. Gratitude. For the lesson learned, for the boundary set, for the person I'd become because of it. My phone rang. My goddaughter, now an adult with a career and life of her own. "Morning, Auntie. Got a question for you." "Shoot." "I'm planning a family trip. Got a decent bonus at work. Want to take Mom and Dad somewhere nice. Any advice?" I smiled at the full circle moment. "Yeah. Make sure they know you're paying. Make sure they thank you properly. And if anyone tries to diminish your generosity, shut that down immediately." She laughed. "Learned that from experience?" "Something like that." "Thanks, Auntie. Love you." "Love you too." After we hung up, I poured my coffee and sat on the porch where my sister and I had talked 5 years earlier. Riley joined me, settling into the chair next to mine. "What are you thinking about?" "Costa Rica. Ancient history. Important history. Still no regrets?" Still no regrets. Because 3 decades later, I understood something I couldn't have known at 23. The vacation I'd planned had failed, but the lesson I'd learned had succeeded beyond measure. I'd learned that my worth wasn't in what I could provide, that boundaries were love in action, that accountability and grace could coexist. I'd learned that some people would rise to meet your standards, and some wouldn't, and both outcomes taught you something valuable. I'd learned that the family you build, through intention and respect and genuine care, matters more than the family you're born into. And I'd learned that the best investment you can make is in your own self-respect. Even if it costs $9,200 and a lot of pain. Even if it takes 3 decades to fully appreciate. Even if it means canceling flights and watching relationships break before they can rebuild. Because on the other side of that pain was a life lived on my own terms. With people who valued, in relationships built on honesty rather than obligation. And that was worth every penny. Riley reached over and took my hand. "You okay?" "Yeah, just grateful." "For what?" "For learning the hard lessons young enough to build a good life. For people who showed me what real love looks like. For having the courage to cancel those flights." "Still the best decision you ever made?" I thought about it. About everything that had followed, The pain and healing, the broken relationships rebuilt, the boundaries that had saved me. Top 3 at least. We sat together watching the morning sunrise, coffee cooling in our cups, 30 years of wisdom settling comfortably between us. Somewhere, my sister was probably drinking her own coffee, thinking about her own journey, her own lessons learned, her own redemption earned through years of consistent effort. And my goddaughter was planning a vacation, armed with my hard-won advice about boundaries and self-worth. The cycle had been broken. The lesson had been passed on. Costa Rica hadn't been a failure. It had been the beginning of everything that mattered. And 30 years later, I was finally grateful for all of it. The pain and the healing, the breaking and the rebuilding. All of it had led me here, to this porch, this life, this peace, to a place where I knew my worth and refused to settle for less, where I could hold both hurt and healing, both accountability and grace, where family meant respect, not obligation, and where love meant seeing people clearly, holding them to standards, and believing they could change. That was the real gift of Costa Rica. Not the vacation I'd planned, but the life I'd built from its ashes.